myself in another country behind her. Man, with the M1, baby, stay deep.
Good morning.
So, welcome Caroline Busta, co-founder of New Models. Caroline has spent years tracking how culture travels through networks, how meaning gets made and how it gets distorted, Caroline. Joining her is Simon Denny, an artist whose works unpack stories about technology, using everything from installation and video to web-based media, crypto and AI. And Simon did a piece around DLD. He was very critical, I have to say, very critical at Kunstverein München over 10 years ago. I thought, oh my God, after seeing this collection, oh my God, DLD is now at its end.
But it was just the beginning.
We fucked it up. It was the beginning. And guiding this conversation is our friend Marc Spiegler. Look at his shoes. Cultural strategist, working at the intersection of contemporary art, technology, and creative economies. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Steffi.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to Steffi for inviting us. Thank you to GL, Fabe, and Mark Fernandez from the team. And thank you to the tech team for playing that loud, because that was our request. And thank you for coming out on a Saturday morning. We don't take it for granted. And we thought we would assault you with 33 seconds of AI slop, just so we know what we're talking about. Merriam-Webster this year defined slop as the word of the year. Oxford said rage bait. And to my mind, they're sort of the same thing, although that may be debatable with my panelists. It's important to talk about what we're not talking about. Obviously, the assumption behind the question, will AI, slop, and deepfakes kill culture, is that AI will not kill humanity. So assuming that our P-doom is 0, so that culture actually still matters because humans are here, what are we talking about, And I think it's also important to say that when we talk about culture, we're not just talking about the visual arts, although the three of us are most tied to the visual art. All of us have links out to other forms of culture. So when I talk about culture here, it also means music, it also means cinema, it also means design and architecture and all those things. I'm known as someone who takes pretty strong positions, and I've been struggling with how I feel about this question. What's clear to me is that we've passed to a different stage of how culture passes through digital channels. I saw a very interesting presentation at Voices, which is kind of the DLD of the fashion world. Voices is put on by Business of Fashion by Gabe Whaley, who is a kind of a net artist. His brand is Mischief, and the title of the talk was something like Virality Sucks. And he talked about how in the beginning, virality was something that happened when you did something that was so weird and cool that the internet kind of projected it around, but it was organic, Now what we have is kind of forced reality. We have virality, we have transactional virality. So when I think about AI slop, it's stuff which is meant to bait our rage, our passion, our lower instincts. And so it's not something that's designed to be cool or interesting or thoughtful in the way that Alexander's pieces are, or that so many great artworks that are made with AI are. It's something that's made to provoke us into wasting time, to the benefit of the social media platforms on which it's being projected. So I'm gonna make a case that AI slop won't kill culture, that it's good for culture, and that AI slop and deepfakes are bad for culture, and then we'll debate that. So the good scenario is this, that we will reach rapidly a kind of critical mass, exit velocity from AI slop, and people will get so distrustful and disgusted and exhausted with AI slop that they'll actually turn away from their screens and turn back towards things like live performance and theater and dinner parties and meeting friends in person. and that we will avoid what Justin Garcia talked about yesterday, the broader networks to focus on the deeper networks of a smaller group of people that we actually see in person. And there's an example of this in the dating world, which is that, you know, people have gotten so sick of dating apps that now they're joining running clubs because they actually want to see people in person. So this is not a purely abstract utopian vision. And, you know, of course, you know, there is also this notion that F.K. Twiggs talked about here, actually sitting in this very spot, that, you know, now that the whole culture is too fast and too messy and too inconsequential, that when we do slow down, it's on the things that we love, that we are able to bring focus. And by definition, the things to which we bring focus are on the things that we love. And so in a weird way, the kind of shitty overload of screen culture means that we value even more the things that we focus upon. So that's the utopian vision. The pessimistic version is that this stuff is just too powerful and that we sink into this sludge and that we lose the ability to read. Like, I teach at university, so I talk to a lot of other professors, and like all of us face the same problem, which is that we cannot credibly assign as much reading as we used to be able to because the students just won't do it. And it's not for lack of motivation, it's just that they've lost the ability to focus and read entire books. You know, and we see this in all forms. You know, this triggers, of course, disconnection, doom scrolling, loneliness, you know, and that we end up in an environment where content and truth doesn't matter, that all that matters is how much dopamine our screens can feed us. So that's the utopian scenario, and that's the dystopian scenario. And I'm really happy to talk to two people who are half a generation or a generation younger than me. I will probably play the old man on this panel, and I'm happy to do so. But I wanted to start with Simon because we're going to skip ladies first, because I think it's an arts panel. So I want to start with Simon because you're someone who actually creates using this stuff. So I'm curious if you could talk to us about how you think about AI as an artist and also as a person and as of a month and a half ago as a parent.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Steffi and DLD. If we could bring up my one slide, that would be fantastic. So I think AI is a language to address the present through the past. A little bit like the legendary Mr. Kluger just said in the previous panel. It fractures linear time. And this context, DLD, and my work tries to meet the present. That's one of the things I love about this place, is it's about meeting the present today. To distill how things feel now. And that's why, like this community, I've been looking into the new world of AI, including what it means for security. And it was incredible to see the defense tech world represented so strongly this year at DLD. It was a marked difference. And so with AI, I want to make contemporary images that combine sloppy outputs, so taking the slop, training them, mixing them with the past, in my case with Italian Futurist paintings, and mixing them with images that the defense tech industry produces, and combining that all with the artistic language that artists first used in dialogue with industry in the 1960s, plotters. So here we have a plotter painting a kind of a de-slopified, fake futurist painting for today.
Great. Carly, as someone who writes and thinks a lot about this, I'm curious, and who's also a parent. So we all have a little bit of a stake in the future, not just in the present.
Our draw distance is a little longer.
Yes, and I'm curious sort of how you think about this question of where is the slop taking us? Where are the deepfakes taking us? First of all, how do you think about it? Because I think just one thing. I think it's important not just that we point at problems, but also that we address sort of potential solutions, as hard as that might be to find. But let's start by sticking to the problem, or the non-problem.
Okay, well, thank you, Steffi, thank you, DLD. It's really very cool to be here among so many different kinds of thinkers. I mean, I think Simon's work is a great example of, you know, he uses AI, he uses slop as a kind of raw material, right? So there's a world in which there is a ton of slop and it fills our brains and we can no longer think and we just become these kind of zombies. There's another world in which we accept that slop is just this kind of raw material. It's not transmitting to us real information. It is projection surface for us to fill with meaning or for us to craft or carve into. And yeah, I mean, I think, Simon, you know, one could say that your work is this, the final product. And you can read lots of things into it. You can read marionnetti into it. You can read, you know, various eras of abstraction, early 20th century. One could see this slide and think, okay, well, it's actually a performance piece. This is a gesture, this is a performance piece. Or one could think of the protocol that you put in place in order to make this final product, and actually all your years coming to DLD and mining this environment for information and for ways of navigating it. So I think it's a great example where slop becomes just another material, like a kind of, you know, oil paint or a kind of clay, and you're sculpting it into something.
Yeah, it's a way to synthesize the present in a new form. Yeah.
And so I just think, yeah, there's this idea that, like, what if the content layer isn't the information transmission surface? Because you're always going to see it in context. You're always going to see this with some detail that says you made it with a plotter, that says you made it after coming to DLD for so many years.
Yeah. I think for me, the issue is less whether the artists can make great work with AI. The question is, it's absolutely clear. Just like artists can make great work with anything. That's, you know, that's the whole point of artists. I think I'm more worried about the rest of us. I'm more worried about the audience. I'm more worried about the people for whom you're making the work. And I guess my question is, if I understood correctly what you were saying before, the argument is it doesn't matter that it's slop because people are giving it meaning. But I mean, I think the great human power is to give meaning. That's why we go through the hard days and the hard years. That's what carries us through. And whether it's religion or family, or, you know, our chosen groups, our countercultures. But the point is, humans will give meaning to anything. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't matter what they're giving meaning to. So I'll, you know, here, if it makes me conservative, I'll say it, but like, I think it matters what we give meaning to. I think it matters because the internet is infinite, but our lives are finite. We never get the day back. We never get the hours doom scrolling back. So does it matter what we give meaning to?
I mean, I think it's more what are the processes of making meaning? Who's making meaning? Who are the authors? And I think this is where I resonate a lot with how Carly framed it. Where are the decisions made? They're made at the protocol level. So
Or downstream of that.
Or downstream of that. But in your relationship to where somewhere up there is being made decisions where you bring your meaning, you know? So I wonder where the agency is, you know? And I guess my own artistic practice is about trying to find that agency in the face of all these new ways in which you don't know quite what is significant, what meaning is being made, and who's making it.
Can I give some examples?
Yes,
That'd
please.
be helpful?
We love examples.
Okay, since we come from the art sector, they will be more in that territory. But I think of, for instance, someone like Anna Imhoff, also working at the protocol level. How many of you are familiar with her work or have actually been to one of her performances? And how many know the name and just kind of can call to mind an image of it? Have seen it on social media? Okay, so about half. So she is an artist who works like conducting other artists' practice. In New York City this past spring, she brought together ABT, like American Ballet Theater, principal dancers with like crunkers from, you know, Coney Island or Brooklyn, and with, you know, Villa Haimala, who's an incredible sound designer, one half of Amnesia Scanner, with, you know, a number of different people. And she conducted all of this into some kind of coherent experience that it felt directed. Anna was working at the protocol level to bring together these practices, somewhat like Hans Ulrich, somewhat like Steffi does at DLD. I did notice the two stages are somewhat similar to like Anna's, right? And so you see somebody creating meaning at the top level. Now, downstream of that, downstream of the content, downstream of the performance, you also have tons of people on social media who are like, you know, rage posting or saying this isn't art or this isn't authentic. They're also creating meaning. And, you know, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but I see those as the two vital sites of meaning creation. And the content itself is important for those who are in the IRL experience, those who are at the gallery, walking through Art Basel during your tenure, right. You know, who are in a live concert. But for everybody who is experiencing that content through a digital interface, it's just content. It's just a stimulation, like, it's just stimuli.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, it was a 3-hour performance, and people went to see it
over many days.
Live,
yeah,
over many days. But the point is that it's like, that's actually, to me, that's the opposite of what we're talking about here, in a sense. Because I agree, yes, someone who uses protocols to make AI art, you know, even art over which they have no control over the result, is doing the same thing as on Imhoff. But the difference is that the experience of that art is in person with other people in a room with atmospherics, and it's 3 hours long. It's not kind of consumed among a bunch of ads on Instagram and TikTok.
But it is consumed. I mean, like,
afterwards.
Afterwards.
But that's like the second part of the performance, which I agree is part of the performance.
It's
Otherwise,
a
they
protocol
wouldn't
on
allow.
a protocol. That's
Yeah, maybe so, right.
But is it the same? Like, is it the same to be at that performance or to consume it on social media? Does it matter?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely different.
Right.
But I mean, I think this is increasingly the cultural logic. Another example, you all know Charlie XCX's Brat. Who doesn't know Charlie? Who knows Charlie XCX's Brat? You all know it. You've all seen the green, right? That is as much an album as it is a protocol, right? Her fans gave that, you know, album meaning more than, you know, like Madonna appearing on stage and like, I don't know, like the album itself being the vehicle of transmission. It's not the album itself that's the
Right.
vehicle of transmission. It's her activating a network, setting up a protocol, the green screen that you could project anything onto. You could memify it, right? So that's another example. I just think it's increasingly the cultural logic, which means that the slop, we don't have to worry as much about it, I
Okay.
think.
All right, so, you know, I can see points in your argument, but I'm going to pretend not to, just so we can keep the debate lively. But, like, okay, so the counter-argument to that would be that, yes, okay, maybe culture is transmitted through memes, through social media, through Slop, et cetera, or let's say, you know, through these platforms, but the type of culture that functions on these platforms is not necessarily the most interesting. That by definition, what works on these platforms has to be quickly understood, highly visual. You know, you can't do a very long painting on Instagram because it doesn't fit in the square box. You know, you can't do a long, slow video because people click past it. You know, there is a type of art, a type of culture, which doesn't function in this space, and I'd like to think that we have to, I would miss it.
I've got a great example that speaks to from the technology community. I was lucky enough to work with Midjourney, one of the you know, main image producers from the AI world. David Holtz, the founder, said something very interesting on a forum that I thought spoke exactly to this issue. It's he said that when people use these tools, you know, the value systems of yesterday will wash away, because the canon that he builds in the training of those models will be much more powerful and deeper than anything that a museum can build. And I think that is a real challenge to our profession, right? To our value system, to our canon building. If all that you can recall is everything that's in the model, if everything that can be expressed is what's been trained, then you're reaching always to the canon builder who's the founder, not the canon builder who's the museum director.
But I mean, isn't the whole point of the 21st century not to get locked into canons?
I think AI is a kind of a canon protocol, in a way.
An LLM is a kind of canon, right? What you train on matters. And we see this with AI, where like because they're training more and more on AI slop, it gets, the production is less and less good, you know?
A wonderful meta-slop kind of stream, a meta-slop stream.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of worried, I think we're feeding ourselves bread and circuses like through the phones. And that's, so as parents, how do you think about this? You know, because I have teenage kids, so maybe by the time your kids are teenagers, it'll be okay. But like for me, it's like really like, luckily my kids at times still read books, but it's not an easy thing. Like there's a whole movement of people who pay their kids $100 to read their first book. And the idea is that they will finally read a book and discover what a great thing it is, you know? But that's where we are right now in the culture. And I'm curious how you think, I mean, you became who you are because you read books, because you watched entire films.
Yeah, but we don't need another me. So my daughter Kika,
all right.
who's 1 month old, I want her to experience the slop of the slop of the slop of the slop and come to it with intelligence and energy. And I think she will produce something that I could have never thought of.
Yeah, and again, reading, as wonderful as it is and as important as it is also like a sort of historically bound thing, right? It's like the last 300 years where we have like widespread literacy. What if some kind of neo-orality replaces it that changes us fundamentally and we lose some things and that's tragic, but we also adapt? I mean, I definitely think we're becoming a new kind of human. And I imagine our children will, be at the forefront of whatever that new human is.
Right. But if we extend that, like what that means is the future DLD is like all the talks will be 4.5 minutes long. Right, because that will be the amount of time that people
Some
are able
people
to
will be
focus
happy
on
with
one
that.
topic.
Yeah.
What's that?
Some people will be very happy about that.
Yes, I suppose. But I mean, I think the risk here is that there are certain things that you can build and appreciate quickly, and there are certain things which actually require focus. Public policy requires focus. Making feature films requires focus.
Making weapons requires focus.
Yes, but people are paid to do that, And the question is, what do we do with our spare time? What do we do? So are we living not only like in do you think we're gonna live in like not only a post-truth economy when it comes to culture, but also a post-authenticity economy, but also in a post-truth cultural sphere? Are we okay? Yeah, if yes, are you okay with that?
I think the post-truth thing has been active for much longer than it's been named.
Right.
I'm reminded of a Bush-era advisor quote. Can't remember the guy who said it, but basically he said, "We act and you process," right? And then once you finish processing, we'll act again. And I think that logic is what's running today. So truth has nothing to do with it. Action is the thing.
Well, and now we live in a political economy where people don't even process. And I hold your thought for just one thing that's important to remember when we talk about all this is it's not like there's like pre-November 22 when OpenAI comes out or pre-summer 24 when Sora 2 drops. The reality is that we have been processing and being fed culture by AI for a long time. Like people have been using auto-tune for at least 15 years. People have been using Photoshop for at least 20 years. So we've been digesting AI-generated culture for a long time. So it's not, to your point, like it's not like, oh, suddenly we're in this environment. Like we may be reaching the point where the frog finally realizes that it's boiling, but we've been in that pot, slowly boiling, for a long time.
It's nice and cozy in here.
Yeah.
It's kind of warm up here,
I mean, am I saved by the bell? Because
No, you're not. No, you're not. Because Steffi's
One last thought.
No, I'm taking our time. Steffi's in trouble. I'm taking the 2 minutes there.
Okay. Yes. I mean, I think there's also the question of, we talk about like AI slop being this thing that's happening to us, but we were acting like slop before that. If you look at, as soon as you have TikTok, you have us forming ourselves for machines, performing for machines, wanting to be recognized by machines.
We act and the slop catches up.
I would say, to some degree, right. And also, I mean, I think increasingly we just don't look at the internet the way we used to. The internet is broken in the way that we thought about it. No one really uses social media in the way that we did. I mean, maybe our children do, and that's something we have to take care of. However, I mean, I think increasingly, like, we'll have AI agents to interface with that space, and we'll be interfacing with each other. I mean, that's definitely, like, the desirable, that feels much better, to be honest.
I mean, I hope so, but, like, if dating apps are people's agents interacting with each other, and, like, you go to a Zoom... I remember there was this interview with the CEO of Zoom who was saying, like, it's okay for me to send my avatar to a Zoom call, and then they were saying, but if the entire Zoom is avatars, then you can just cancel the call, So Or
it's its own new world.
Or it's its own new world. Okay, it's a brave new world, and if you remember where that book came from, then that's not necessarily a great new world. I want to thank the panel. This discussion could go on forever. We're here if you want to carry on with it. Good luck. Thanks again to DLD, and onwards into the future, whatever that may bring.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.